There are people who will never slam a door in your face. They won't send a long, angry paragraph. They won't even tell you they're hurt. They'll just quietly stop showing up. They still like your posts. They still say, "I'm good, just busy." They still smile in pictures if you're around, but the depth is gone. The conversations become shallow. They take longer to respond. They cancel more often. You feel the energy shift, but you can't quite name it. And then one day, you realize you're the only one still trying. When someone gives up on you silently, it doesn't feel like a clean break. It feels like psychological limbo. Your mind starts looping around the same painful questions. Did I do something wrong? Why didn't they just tell me? If I had been better, would they have stayed? The silence becomes louder than any argument. You replay old conversations like forensic evidence. You search for the moment things went wrong. You wonder if you imagined the connection. You wonder if you were just more invested than they ever were. But what if their silence is not a verdict on your worth? What if it's a mirror, reflecting their own fear of conflict, their unhealed wounds, and their inability to stay present when emotions become uncomfortable? In this video, we're going to walk slowly into the psychology of people who give up on others silently. We'll look at attachment styles, trauma responses, and the way the nervous system chooses disappear instead of explain. We'll bring in Carl Jung's ideas, the shadow, projection, repression, to understand what's really going on underneath that quiet retreat. And by the end, this isn't just about understanding them, it's about understanding you. Because most of us, at some point, have been both. The one who was left without a word, and the one who emotionally checked out without saying anything. So stay with me. Somewhere in what we're about to explore, you might recognize yourself more than you expect. Imagine this. You have a friend, partner, or family member who used to feel close. You shared jokes, late-night conversations, deep fears. They used to text you just to say something small and random. They remembered your details. There was warmth and effort. Then slowly, something changes. They still respond, but shorter. The emojis disappear. You start most of the conversations. They rarely ask follow-up questions. You feel their presence thinning out, like someone walking backwards into fog. There is no big fight, no dramatic ending, just a gradual quiet. This kind of ending is cruel, in a very specific way. The human brain craves closure. Our nervous system wants to file experiences as safe or dangerous, open or finished. When someone leaves without clearly leaving, your mind doesn't get to put the file away. It just keeps opening it again and again. So you create explanations. You might tell yourself, "I must be too much," or "I must be boring, annoying, not interesting enough," or "I must have missed some invisible rule." That's the first thing to understand. When people walk away silently, they leave a psychological vacuum. And unless we're aware of it, we fill that vacuum with self-blame. But what if we shift the question? Instead of, "Why wasn't I enough for them to stay?" ask, "What is it inside of them that makes staying present feel impossible?" Because silent leavers are not mystical, unreadable creatures. They have patterns, they have histories. Their silence is not random. It's a strategy, usually learned a long time ago, often in childhood, where silence felt safer than honesty. Let's start with attachment. Some people grow up learning that closeness is dangerous. Maybe they had caregivers who were unpredictable, intrusive, or emotionally unavailable. Love came with strings, criticism, or sudden withdrawal. Over time, their nervous system decided, "I'm better off depending on myself." This often becomes what we call avoidant attachment. Avoidant attached people are not heartless. They're not necessarily cold on the inside. Many of them feel deeply, but they've learned to survive by minimizing their own emotional needs and downplaying the importance of connection. On the surface, they can seem independent, self-sufficient, above drama. They're the ones who say things like, "I don't like talking about feelings. I'm just not a very emotional person." Or, "I hate conflict." When things are light and easy, they can show up. When the connection starts to demand more emotional presence, vulnerability, hard conversations, accountability, their system starts to panic quietly. They often won't say, "I'm scared." They won't say, "I feel overwhelmed by how much you matter." They won't say, "I'm afraid you'll see my flaws and leave, so I'd rather leave first." Instead, they back away through behavior. They delay responses. They say they're busy more often. They avoid clarifying conversations. They become vague about plans. They tell themselves stories like, "We just grew apart," or "I'm not ready for this." To someone with an anxious or secure attachment style, this feels like betrayal or abandonment. But to an avoidantly attached person, it can feel like self-protection. Their nervous system is choosing distance because closeness feels like danger. So when an avoidantly attached person gives up on you silently, it's rarely because they carefully evaluated your worth and found you lacking. It's because the level of intimacy required triggered old survival patterns. Their silence is their shield. Now let's talk about conflict. Some people grow up in homes where disagreement equals war. Maybe voices were raised, doors were slammed, or punishments followed any pushback. Others grew up in environments where everyone pretended everything was fine, no matter what was happening. In both extremes, explosive conflict or total emotional numbness, a child may learn one powerful lesson: it's not safe to say how I really feel. As an adult, that turns into conflict avoidance. Instead of saying, "I'm not happy with how this is going," they ghost. Instead of admitting, "I feel suffocated," they fade away. Instead of saying, "I don't see a future here," they become increasingly unavailable until you get the hint. On the surface, it might even look polite. They don't want to hurt your feelings. They don't want to be the bad guy. They tell themselves that disappearing quietly is kinder than being honest. But avoidance always has a cost. The person left behind experiences the disappearance as abandonment, confusion, and emotional neglect. They don't get a chance to respond, to adjust, to say goodbye. They're just left. For the silent leaver, there's also a cost. They never practice the skill of honest ending. They never learn to tolerate the discomfort of saying, "This isn't working for me." Their relationships end, but their pattern stays. So the same story repeats with new people. This is where Jung becomes especially relevant. Carl Jung talked about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to see, accept, or claim. For many silent leavers, their shadow holds the traits they fear becoming: needy, weak, cruel, selfish, or too much. They want to be seen as kind, calm, above drama, so they repress everything that threatens that image. Instead of saying, "I'm angry," they say nothing. Instead of saying, "I feel trapped," they say nothing. Instead of saying, "I can't give you what you want," they quietly withdraw. The angry, scared, selfish parts don't disappear. They just move into the shadow, operating from behind the scenes. You see it in passive-aggressive behavior, in disappearing acts, in half-hearted responses, in promises they quietly sabotage. Projection is another Jungian idea at play here. A person who unconsciously fears their own neediness might accuse you of being too clingy. Someone who cannot face their own coldness might convince themselves that you're the one who changed. Instead of saying, "I don't know how to handle this level of intimacy," they may tell themselves, "You're just too demanding." So they disappear, not only to avoid you, but to avoid facing themselves. Their silent exit is less about you and more about the version of themselves they cannot bear to confront in the mirror. If you pay attention, there are usually signs long before the final quiet break. Someone who is quietly giving up on you rarely does it overnight. They often emotionally leave first, then physically leave later. You might notice a few things. They stop being curious about you. They don't ask, "How was your day?" in a way that invites depth. The conversation becomes more about logistics, surface topics, or nothing much at all. They stop initiating. You realize almost every conversation starts with you. Every plan is your idea. If you stopped reaching out, the connection would go silent. They avoid repair. When there's tension, they go distant instead of working through it. They say, "It's fine," when it isn't. They might apologize quickly just to end the conversation without exploring what actually happened. They're physically present but emotionally absent. They show up in the same spaces, maybe even sit next to you, but they feel gone. Their eyes check their phone more. Their attention floats elsewhere. They withhold vulnerability. Where there used to be open sharing, now there are short replies, vague answers, and deflections. They keep you at arm's length, even if they're still technically around. Sometimes, they even become extra polite. There's a strange courtesy that appears when someone has one foot out the door. They don't want to be accused of cruelty, so they become almost too nice, but hollow. If you're sensitive, you feel all of this before they ever leave. Your body knows. You sense it in the pauses, in the slow fade of effort, in the way their presence no longer feels like home. Here's the hard truth. When someone is quietly giving up on you, they are already choosing distance over repair. And that choice tells you something essential about their capacity, not your value. So what does all of this say about them? First, it says their nervous system is wired to avoid emotional discomfort. Silence feels safer than honesty. Distance feels safer than vulnerability. Their system has learned that the best way to escape shame, conflict, or rejection is to slowly disappear. Second, it suggests a lack of inner integration. Jung would say their shadow is running the show. They have not made peace with their own anger, fear, or need. They may see themselves as nice, chill, or non-confrontational, but under that identity is a person unable to fully show up when things get real. Third, it reveals their emotional limits. Not everyone has the capacity to hold deep, secure, accountable relationships. Some people are still in survival mode, even if they look functional on the outside. Ending things with honesty is a skill. It requires self-awareness, empathy, and courage. Not everyone has developed that yet. None of this excuses harmful behavior. Understanding someone's psychology is not the same as excusing their choices, but it does shift the narrative away from "I must be unworthy" toward "they might not be capable of something deeper right now." When you see it this way, their silent exit doesn't become less painful, but it does become less personal. Now we need to turn the lens towards you in a more uncomfortable way, because for many people watching this, you haven't just been the one abandoned without a word. You've also been the one who leaves quietly. Maybe you don't ghost completely, but you withdraw. You stop responding as much. You make yourself harder to reach. You hope they will get the hint, so you don't have to say the hard thing out loud. If that's you, this is not about shaming you. It's about understanding why. Ask yourself, when was the first time you learned that honesty was unsafe? Who taught you, directly or indirectly, that your feelings would either be ignored, punished, or used against you? What happened the last time you tried to say, "I'm not happy," or "I need something different"? If you trace it back, you might find moments where you did try to be honest, and it went badly. Maybe you were called selfish or dramatic. Maybe you caused a scene and felt deep shame afterward. Maybe the other person fell apart and you felt responsible for their pain. So now, your protective strategy is distance. You tell yourself, "I'll just move away slowly. They'll figure it out. I don't want to hurt them by telling the truth. I don't owe anyone an explanation." But here's the paradox. The thing you think is kinder is often more damaging in the long run. Silence doesn't only avoid your discomfort, it multiplies theirs. Honest ending is a skill. It might sound like, "I need to be honest. I felt myself pulling away, and I don't think I can continue this relationship in the same way. This connection has been important to me, but I'm realizing I can't give what you need. I'm not in the right place to continue this, and that isn't your fault. I just don't want to pretend." These sentences are scary. Your heart might race even hearing them, but this is what growing up emotionally looks like. Being willing to tolerate the discomfort of truth rather than hiding behind ambiguity. If you're the one who leaves silently, notice the stories you tell yourself. Conflict is dangerous. If I say how I feel, everything will explode. If I leave quietly, it will hurt less. Those stories were probably true once. They protected you. But as an adult, they might be keeping you trapped in a loop where you never fully show up and never fully leave. You hover in between. To step out of that loop, you don't have to become perfect at communication overnight. You just have to start experimenting with slightly more honesty than you're used to. One small sentence at a time. Now, if you're on the other side, if you are the one left without closure, there's a different kind of work. It's tempting to wait for them to come back and explain, to wait for the message that finally makes it make sense, to wait for them to admit, it was me, not you. But sometimes, closure doesn't come from them, it comes from you. You can start by naming what actually happened, without minimizing it. This person gradually withdrew instead of communicating. They chose distance over repair. They did not make space for a real conversation. Next, resist the urge to turn their capacity into your identity. Instead of, I must not be lovable, try, they weren't able to meet me where I was. Instead of, if I were better, they would have stayed, try. The version of relationship I want requires someone willing to stay present when things are uncomfortable. One powerful exercise is to write the letter you wish they had written. Say everything you wish they had explained. Then, respond as yourself. This isn't about pretending they care more than they do. It's about giving your nervous system a narrative that allows you to move forward instead of staying stuck in the question mark. You can also ask yourself, what did this experience reveal about my own patterns? Do you ignore early signs because you're afraid of losing the connection? Do you tolerate one-sided effort for too long? Do you chase people who repeatedly treat you as optional? Painful as it is, people who silently leave teach you something essential, who you cannot safely give your full emotional self to. That realization can birth boundaries. You might decide, I will no longer carry a relationship by myself. If the effort, vulnerability, and repair are always coming from me, I'll step back sooner. I won't confuse someone's avoidance with my unworthiness. This doesn't mean becoming bitter or closed off. It means learning to distinguish between someone who is emotionally available and someone who is emotionally absent but physically nearby. So where does this leave us? The psychology of people who give up on others silently is complex. It includes avoidant attachment, conflict avoidance, childhood conditioning, and a deep fear of emotional exposure. It also includes Jung's shadow, the parts they refuse to see that end up dictating their choices from the dark. They are not monsters. Many of them feel guilty. Many of them stay up late replaying the moments they pulled away. But guilt, without awareness and change, doesn't repair anything. If you recognize yourself as the silent leaver, your work is to slowly become more honest. First with yourself about what you feel, then with others about what you can and cannot offer. You may lose some connections by being clearer, but the ones that remain will be more real. If you recognize yourself as the one left in silence, your work is to stop making their inability to stay present a reflection of your worth. Let it be a reflection of their readiness, their capacity, their current level of self-awareness. You are allowed to grieve deeply and still conclude, this was not about me being unlovable. Underneath all of this is one simple but difficult truth. Healthy relationships are built on presence. Not perfection, not performance, but presence. Presence in the joy, presence in the tension, presence in the repairs, the misunderstandings, the awkward conversations. Silence might feel easier in the moment. Disappearing might feel safer. But long term, what actually heals us are the people who stay in the room with us emotionally, even when it's uncomfortable, and the moments when we choose to stay in the room with ourselves. So as you finish this video, maybe ask yourself 2 questions. Where have I been quietly giving up on people instead of speaking my truth? Where have I been accepting silent withdrawals as normal, instead of recognizing them as a sign to protect my heart? The answers won't always be pleasant, but they will be honest. And that honesty is where new patterns begin. If this spoke to you, pause for a moment before you click away. Notice who came to mind. Notice where in your body you felt this. Your chest, your throat, your stomach. That's your psyche showing you where the work lives. You don't have to fix everything today, but you can start by seeing it. And sometimes, seeing clearly is the first step toward never abandoning yourself again, even when others do.